I love going thrifting for yarn, and I found this amazing deal on a package of 5 skeins for 10 bucks. I could not pass. But maybe you're like me and you're like, okay, well, now what do we do with all this yarn? I've got a really fun idea to share with you. I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. This video is not sponsored, but ClawLab did kindly send me this kit for me to try out. Honestly, I was so excited when they reached out to me because this has been something I've been wanting to try out for a while, and that is rug tufting. So I'm going to start off by putting together the frame that's going to hold the fabric in place for me to rug tuft into. It was fairly simple to put together. I just laid out my pieces, and originally I was going to do this on the end of my kitchen island, but it was too wide, so I had to just switch places here as you see me doing. But these brackets that I'm putting into place, like the big chunky ones, that is going to be like clamping onto my kitchen island. And then these pieces that I'm clamping in right now, those pieces are going to hold our fabric in place and also allow us to roll it up as needed. They were fairly simple. There's one that was stationary on the top and the bottom, and then one that was kind of loose to allow the fabric to move. Once that's in place, then I'm going to be putting the tubes here on the ends of this rod that's got some Velcro on it. There were some pegs and they had to slip into a couple of slots that are in this tubing. And that's going to go into the top brackets of our frame. You just have to push really hard. I am going to have a video tutorial on how you can set up your frame if you do decide to get something like this. But I have to say it was fairly simple. All right, so I'm going to open up the C-clamps wide enough to fit on my kitchen island counter. I'm going to put those in place, and then I'm going to tighten everything up. These side pieces here, they're kind of like a cinch or like a bit of a bracket. The one piece slides up and down, loosening or tightening these brackets. And this rubber piece that you saw me playing with before, right here, it's kind of folded. That will help hold this special fabric into place. It has got registration marks. It's got a nice loose weave. That's going to allow the yarn to be put into it and hold into place. I needed to just stretch my fabric out, which came in the kit. I'm going to be putting it on the Velcro that's on this rod, and then I'm going to roll it up. Just make sure you get it as straight as possible on the top edge. This rug tufting gun is perfect for beginners because I myself am a beginner. You are going to be watching me doing this all for the very, very first time. And there might have been like a few little quirks with the gun, but I managed to figure it out. And I'm going to be sharing you some of the tips that I have learned along the way. Once your fabric is all rolled up, you can put it back on the top into the slots that are provided for this rod. You just want to make sure you do not get your fabric pinched into the brackets. I actually didn't. I didn't realize it at first until I started to try and weave the fabric into the main rods of this frame. So I'm going to start to unroll it. And this is where I realized that it was getting kind of caught up. You can see here, I've got some slots in these chunkier rods. That's where our fabric is going to be going. Here, I'm just loosening up that fabric that again got pinched, putting that back in place, and now you can see how it's moving freely. But I'm putting the fabric into the top and the bottom of those chunkier rods through those slots that are provided. It did take a little bit of fiddling, but I did manage to get that through. My fingers were a little bit big, so I did struggle a little bit, but you want to make sure you pull it down for about 7 inches, and then on the bottom, you're going to be rolling it clockwise about 1 full turn. That's going to start to lock your fabric into place. Now we're going to be taking the edge of our fabric and tucking it into the side brackets, pushing that folded kind of rubbery plastic bit over the top. You are going to want to do the same thing on the opposite side before you press down on the lever to really help lock it all into place. You're going to see when I press on this lever, the fabric tightens right up. And so I'm going to do that on the opposite side. And now you can see like it is taut, but to make it even tighter, I am going to tighten up the top rod at least 2 to 3 times until it's really tight. You want to make sure you keep hearing it clicking until it's nice and taut. You definitely need that fabric to be taut. I had made a mistake later on in the video where it wasn't, and it did make it a little difficult. All right, so here is our tufting gun, and it comes in this nice case. Here in Canada, we can just get the gray one, but I know that there is a white option available to the United States. This here is, I think, an adapter for maybe Europe. I'm not sure, but you can see it has a power adapter and a cord, and it's got like the plug-in. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug this all in. I do happen to have a power outlet in my island, which is another reason why I was working in this space. It just made it so convenient. So I'm just going to get my tufting gun all ready to go. So the kit does come with an assortment of yarns, some fabric, some backing, and the tufting gun. And then there is the frame as well. I'm going to be using the yarn that came with it to test this all out. And I'm also using the fabric that came with this to test it all out. Now, originally, you can see I threaded this through on that top little piece there. You actually don't want to do that. So ignore that step. But you can see I am threading it through this guide that's by the needle. I threaded it through there, and then I'm actually going to thread it through the actual needle of the tufting gun. So I'm going to go ahead. I've also got like a little metal threader piece here that helped me get it into place. But yeah, that top part, it ended up being a big mistake, and I'll show you why. But I'm going to turn this on, and then you can see how it's all lit up. It's nice and green. It means it's on. And it's when it's blue like that, or kind of like a light purple, it means it's asleep. The mode button kicks it into gear again. Turning the knob here will help you to go either faster or slower. And the greener it gets, the faster it gets. If it's more blue, then it is going to be slower. And then when it's actually working, you can see it highlights in pink. So I did struggle with the knob a little bit. I don't know if my fingers were just slipping off because I just put cream on it, or if I need to lubricate my dial a little bit. I'm not sure, but I did struggle to turn it a little bit. All right, to tuft. You want to press your gun into your fabric really hard. You want to be nice and firm. And then you want to start off with doing short bursts. You want to start off slowly and keep your gun straight. But as you could see, I was holding my yarn, and because of that, there was resistance and my yarn wasn't going into the fabric. So be careful of that. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, I'm like, okay, I'm still struggling here. Why is it? And I realized that the thread guide on the top was actually creating too much resistance. So I took it off. It slipped right off. And when I did that and attempted to tuft again, I had no problems. So it's really, really important that you allow for your yarn to be nice and free. You do not want any resistance. So when you do that, you can see how pretty it looks. You can see the mess on the other side. You definitely need to make sure that it doesn't get caught up on anything. But thankfully, you can just clean it up and you will be able to tuft over those spots again. So at this point in time, all I am doing is practicing. You can see how I'm practicing my curves. I'm also practicing following the lines. I'm also practicing on filling in some of the gaps. Now, one thing I will say is I did find going around turns a little tricky, or creating circles a little tricky. So I went and I just did short little bursts, and I didn't go too fast. I found that that made it a little bit easier. Next, I decided I wanted to try to learn to follow a pattern. So I'm just drawing a simple circle around just this glass lid. And I'm going to attempt to follow the line. And again, I did struggle, but I just practice. This piece of fabric, that's all I was using it for, was practice. So here I realized I was going off the lines, so I stopped, and I was just doing those short little bursts. Another thing you do not want to do is to go upside down with your tufting gun. You can go sideways or straight up, but you cannot go upside down. So you can see here, once I kind of figured out that if you tuft with short, small bursts where you just tap your gun gently, you can kind of follow the circle. Now I decided I'm going to fill it in. And to fill in a shape, it does make it easy when you just do these lines going from bottom to the top. And that's the way here you can completely fill it in. I decided I wanted to try a heart, and this was a little trickier, but I was just, playing around. I encourage you to do the same until you feel confident using your tufting gun. Another tip I wanted to share was sometimes you need to re-tighten your fabric. So just turn that top knob until you hear clicks, until you can't do that anymore. And that will allow the fabric to tighten up again. But you can see all the fun little shapes I was creating, and my daughter even joined in with me, and we had a fun afternoon practicing tufting together. I was inspired by this leaf rug. Now this is quite a large piece, but I wanted to do a smaller scale, but this was my inspiration. Typically with rug tufting, you would use a projector to have the image highlighted on your fabric. I don't have a projector, but I did find a way on how you can create a pattern and put it onto your fabric so you have a template to follow. So I went into Canva and I found this free leaf pattern. I changed it into a black and white image, and then I saved it as a JPEG file. I loaded it into a program called Rasterbaiter. This creates poster-sized images. You just have to upload the image. Here is my saved leaf file. And it's going to upload it into this program. I will have it linked down below for you. You can see there is a 6-foot shadow image on there. That's going to determine the size of the printout we are going to create. And it prints out an image that you see here, one image onto one piece of letter size paper. So I am going to be making adjustments. I had to change my paper size to US letter, and then I needed to adjust the size of the output as well. I only needed a total of 4 pieces of copy paper to be printed out. So it just took a little bit of fiddling around until I was happy with it. And then I saved it and downloaded it onto my computer. So you can see here all the different images, the lines of the leaf that have been printed out onto my paper. This one was a larger version. I did end up going back in and creating a smaller version, which you will be seeing, but I just wanted to quickly show you what it's going to look like. And then when that's all ready to go, you can go ahead and print all of those pages out to create your poster size leaf pattern. So I'm going to lay all of my pieces out. Now, how it printed out was going left to right, starting at the top and then working its way down to the bottom. You can see I've got my 4 sheets all ready to go. I needed to trim off the margin, the registration marks that were there. And you only need to do the parts where the leaf pattern is going to touch. I ended up trimming off more, which was not needed at all, but that is okay. That's up to you. Once you've got your a leaf all lined up, all your leaf images lined up, take some tape and then tape it all together. You want to make sure everything is lined up really well before you tape it together. Just being careful here, taking my time, but here it is all ready to go. All right, so I'm going to take my leaf pattern and I'm going to put it backwards, like onto my fabric surface. So I'm facing the front of my fabric right now. This is the part where the yarn is all nice and fuzzy. This is also a fresh piece of fabric that, again, they kindly sent me. I put my image into place and now I've got a nice bright light. Use whatever you have, whether it be a flashlight or what have you. But I happen to have this nice light. It's nice and portable and I can adjust the brightness. I made it really, really, really nice and bright. Went on to the opposite side and took a Sharpie and now I'm going to trace it. See, I don't need to have a projector. I just did it this way and it worked really, really well. All I did was trace the outline of my leaf. Depending on how you're doing your pattern, will determine how you need to trace it out. So for me, all the leaf portion is going to be one color and the veins of the leaf are going to be another color. So right here, I'm going over the veins and I am going around the pattern. I am creating some negative space and I need to fill that negative space in. The rest of the leaf is going to be a different color. So you can see here, I'm just taking my time and making sure I get it all traced out properly. And this is what it looks like when I'm done. Here is that bundle of yarn that I got. I decided to use this cream and this green together, divided in their kit. You also want to throw your balls of yarn onto the floor. And I've got 3 strands of the cream, and this is the color I am going to use for the veins of my leaf. So you want to first start off by tracing around the outline first, and then we are going to go back in and fill in those lines. So I'm just taking my time, going slower, doing short bursts with my gun, following the line until I get to the top. Remember, you want to press your gun in really nice and firm. That way here you'll get a nice clean line of yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and just go slow. Here I'm having to go the opposite direction to make sure I do not put my gun upside down. That is very, very important. So that's another thing you'll need to put into consideration, how you put your pattern onto your rug tufting fabric. So this is what it looks like on the other side. It's looking good so far. Now I'm going to go in and start to fill in all those blank spots that we had left behind. I'm just trying to be careful because I don't want to accidentally go over the work that I had already done, because that could damage it and also pull out some yarns. But you can see how beautiful that looks. I think it's so fun. Now for the green, I'm using 2 skeins. Again, I've got them loosely laid out on the floor. And now I'm going to go ahead and start to follow the outline of my leaf. Now, I did end up coming up with a few little tricks with this one, especially in around the veins of the leaf, and I will show you those here in a bit. But I just wanted to show you, now I can go a nice steady stream. My yarn is free flowing, which is again super important. Be careful not to stand it on it. I did that and it was really frustrating. Okay, so now I'm going to just start to fill it in. I'm going to just go nice and slow here. I did make a few mistakes. I think it was just because I'm tall and the bottom of the leaf was kind of hard for me to see. So you can see there was a few little spaces there, but that's okay because my backing is going to be dark and you're not even going to see the light coming through at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and just start to fill this in, and then I'm going to show you what to do once we get to the Ys in the veins of the leaf. So if you have like a Y or a V spot like I have here amongst the veins, I found it easier to just kind of go in and create some straight lines to fill in that Y formation. And I just did little stitches here and there until I got that space filled in, just like you see me doing right here. So this is the front side, and you can see how nice and full it's getting. Yes, you are going to have the odd loose thread here and there. That is okay. They are removable. Everything's looking good. So I'm going to go on to the other side and continue to fill in. But you can see, like, once I've got the Y filled in, then I'm going to go straight up and down, starting from the bottom and working my way up from the sections where the Y's were. I just found it easier to just fill in those like Y's in the direction that they're going first before I went back in and continued to fill in the rest. So I am going to have some links to all the products that I have used within this video if you want to check it out, along with some tutorials to help get you started. One thing I really noticed about rug tufting is how forgiving it is. You can see I had a hot mess on the other side, but you would never know it looking at it here. Okay, so now I'm just going to start to trim off all my yarns on the back. I didn't want too much added bulk, so I thought it was best for me to trim these off. All right, I'm all done trimming things up. Now I am loosening my frame off of my counter and I'm going to lay it flat as I need to add some adhesive to this. Now they do provide a heat pad, but it wasn't bulky enough. So I ended up going into my linen closet and grabbing some towels, folding them up until they provided enough stability underneath this project. So this is what the adhesive package comes with. Silicone paper, adhesive powder, a spatula, and the heat pad. I have to have my image. You can see how it's upside down, nice and flat, got the towels all in place. This is the adhesive powder. You want to sprinkle it onto the back of your image here until you got it all covered. I'm going to just be working on this in sections though, because you do need to take the spatula to smooth it all out. That's also going to help it to just kind of get all in between all our threads as well. Now, another option is to use rug glue, but this is a more like it doesn't stink, so it's less toxic. This is the powder that ClawLab actually provides with their heat press machine. You can also buy it separately. And I did have the fan running in my kitchen in the background just because I wanted to make sure there was going to be absolutely no odor, but I have to say it was definitely odorless. Okay, so I've got the powder covered all over the back, and I'm going to be using my silicone paper for the heat press. I'm going to spread that over top of the adhesive powder. And then I've got my heat press heating in the background. Now you're going to have to follow the instructions on the heat press that comes with this, or if you're using your own heat press, then you're going to have to just do some trial and error until you get the glue to melt. That's exactly what we're doing here. We're melting it. So I'm going to have, again, the video on how to use the heat press for this down below in the description below. But all you're doing is melting that powder into place. You can see above the heat press how it's all like opaque, but how it's gone transparent where I did have the heat press. I'm going to give you an up close image here in a moment. So here it is all melted. It definitely goes kind of transparent when you have done it correctly. You may need to go over it again. I know I ended up having to go over it again. Once it has cooled down, then you can remove the silicone paper. I did have one spot where it kind of stuck. I had to just kind of fiddle around until I got that loose. That was my own fault. But once you've got that removed, you can check over it to make sure it looks good. And I was really impressed. It kind of leaves like a bit of a rubbery feel on the back. While this is still on the frame, you're going to go ahead and cut this out now. And you want to cut it out about an inch on each side. You do want to add the glue while it's in the frame just to prevent from anything being distorted. All right, my image is all cut out. You can see I still have not a lot of room here to play around to create another little rug. Here is my rug. You can see I've got that like little inch around the edge. There's a few longer pieces of thread sticking up, so I'm just going to go ahead and use my scissors to trim those off. But if you want, you could use some rug clippers. I decided not to because I know a lot of people probably won't have those. So I'm going to just show you how easy it is just to use your scissors just to trim this up. And I have to say I didn't have to do too much. Plus, I kind of like the rough and rugged look. It kind of gave it a bit more of a, let's call it an organic look. Okay, so you can see I need to fold over my edges and glue those into place. So I'm back down in my craft room now. My hot glue gun is all ready to go. I wasn't sure if I got the adhesive all the way around the edges, so I thought this would be best if I just glue that edge into place. You'll see in some other videos, sometimes they'll just trim it right off. But I didn't feel comfortable doing that just yet since this is my very first rug that I made. And so I decided to do it this way. As you're working here, if you have any little bit of bulk like I have right here, you can go ahead and just trim that off and then go ahead and continue to glue it into place. If you come to a tight little corner like I have here, you can go ahead and just kind of trim into or cut into the fabric to help it to shape to your form a little bit better. And you might need to use a little bit of extra glue just to help to prevent the fabric from fraying on you. All right, I got my edges all glued in place and it's looking really good. Now it's time to add the backing. So this is the backing fabric that was included in the kit. And I cut a piece out that was the length of my leaf rug here. So to adhere the backing, I'm actually just going to be using hot glue for mine as I'm not going to use mine on the floor. But if you were going to use yours on the floor, I would use some Gorilla Glue sticks along with some Gorilla silicone. These are non-toxic options for you, although there is, again, some rug glue if you would prefer. All right, I'm just going to use my hot glue. I'm adding a bead right along the edge of the back of the leaf. And then I'm pressing the backing into place. I'm just going to be working in sections, again, running that bead right along the edge and pressing it into place. Once I've got one side filled or adhered, I'm going to just add little bits of glue here and there, all in the center, and press it down into place. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm not going to be using mine on the floor. So if I was though, I would make sure I've got really good adhesion because I would not want my backing to lift. So I've finished applying the glue all the way around the edges, and you can see I've got a nice fit here. I'm going to trim off the excess. I'm running my scissors right along the edge of the backing to remove the excess. You can see how I'm kind of folding back that backing so I get a nice clean cut. All right, so if you did it right, you should not see any of the backing around the edges. So as I mentioned before, I'm not turning mine into an actual rug for the floor. I want to turn mine into a wall hanging. So as you can see, I've got this beautiful branch. It's actually a branch that I foraged off of the beach. It had been cut down by some beavers, which I thought was so fun. I'm going to be using the yarn that I used in my little rug here. I'm going to use that to attach it to the piece of wood here. I'm going to be just tying it on, and I'm going to wrap the yarn around several times just to create, like, I don't know, some interest and just to kind of bring the color up around the branch. And you can see also the branch is the same color as the veins of our leaf, which I thought was a fun touch. All right, so I wrapped it around a few times, and then I'm going to tie just a basic knot, and I am going to be leaving the tails nice and long. So I have kind of made it so I can kind of move the knot as needed because I do want that knot to be at the bottom of our branch. So for the hanger, I'm going to go tie on one end, but I kind of found that like a branch will kind of like to naturally settle in one position. So I kind of lifted up and I allowed it to do that. And then that will determine where I'm going to put my knots for my hanger. I want the knots where I'm going to be putting my hanger to be at the top of the branch. And then I want like the the tie that's going to be attaching to my leaf rug, I want the knots there to be at the bottom of the branch. I hope that makes sense. It kind of gets weighted to one way or the other. So I tied on and wrapped on the yarn on one end, and I'm going to just tie that off, creating a bit of a hanger, and then I'm going to tie it on the opposite end as well. This is up to you how you want to actually do the hanger. You don't have to do it exactly like I'm doing it. This is just the way I decided to do it. You could also use twine instead, or some wood beads would be really fun to add as well. I wanted the focus to be just the branch and my rug, so this is how I decided to do it. So I got all my hangers into place. I'm using some glue just to help to secure the knots, because sometimes yarn can be kind of slippery and the knots can come undone. So I decided to do that. And now I'm going to add those tails that are in the middle to the back of our leaf. I just trimmed them off a little bit, adding some hot glue to the back, and I'm going to press those tails into place. And if I do have everything figured out right, it should hang nice and straight once I put it up on the wall. So here is my inspiration piece, and here is how my leaf rug hanging turned out, and I absolutely love it. I am not going to lie to you. I had so much fun doing this. I don't know, there's just something about it. It's just so satisfying. I want to say a big thank you to ClawLab for sending me all of these fun tools to use. I really enjoyed it. I want to thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.